We've kind of started now, but it's just me and Ashley talking shit on all of y'all.
Hilarious. No, she's adorable. She's a boss. You think I'm a boss? That girl.
Like
She's gonna be the president of
fourth
the United
grade, fifth
States.
grade?
Fifth.
Fifth, yeah.
Did I tell you when I was working in the Obama White House, she was a baby and I was bringing her through Secret Service, and the service officer were like, one day we're going to be protecting this building for her. And I was like, from your mouth to God.
God's ears.
And I'm going to be her top advisor. You know that, right? Send me the speech before you get.
I say that about my grandsons, the Rocha boys. They're going into the third grade this year. And one of them is really quiet, and the other one is definitely going to be either in prison or president.
Oh, stop. Don't do that.
He's going to be somewhere out there. You cannot. He is hell on wheels.
Granddad, in other words.
Yes. Because people know I got a criminal record. I've done it all. Like I've done, all the
Some
things.
people don't trust you if you're too clean. You know what I mean? Like you got to have a little dirt under your nails. That's what I've been told.
I call it getting.
You made it. When you
I called it. You gotta get. You have to been a little scuffed up.
Yeah.
If you ain't got no scuffs and you ride too shiny, and I don't know if you've really seen any shit.
That's true. Now that I have been told.
Anyway, Ashley, thanks for joining. There'll be a bunch more people get on here as we keep going. This is my sister, Ashley, for all of y'all. Thanks for welcoming and coming into the Rocha Revolution. I'm going to mess up her last name. It's Etienne.
Perfect.
Look at that. The Creole girl from down in Houston. She's my homegirl from Texas. We actually hadn't had a lot of women on this show because women are smarter than men, and I don't like them to be on the show. So the only other woman I've had on this show is Maria Cardona.
Oh, yeah. Who is a smarty?
She is. And she talks a lot, and I like her. I love her.
And she's gorgeous.
And I ain't going to tell her age, but we're close to the same age. And that woman is clumming and does not age. Let's just leave it at that.
All. And listen, doesn't gain a pound either. I love that about her.
And y'all should notice that her chair that she does her live hits in is really epic with the flowers behind it on the wood chair. I look at all, because me and Ashley do communications, I look at people's backdrop, not that you're looking at my backdrop now because it's fucking horrible, but her chair is really boss lady chair that she has at her house. But we're excited to have Ashley here today. Ashley is all things comms strategist. So if you're thinking about your campaigns, you're thinking about public policy, you think about how bad Democrats suck at messaging, it's because they haven't listened to Ashley enough through her career. She's tried to help them, and sometimes they've denied her help, and then they suck. So what we want to do today is talk about
By the way, we won't name any names.
Now, I'm not. You can, but I still got to get a couple of people to hire me. But we're going to talk about who's doing it right, what we could be doing better. But Ashley, thank you so much for coming on.
Listen, Chuck, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. I respect your voice. I respect your perspective. But more than anything else, I respect your story and how you got into politics. I mean, you and I are sort of cut from the same cloth in that respect. And so, anyone that sort of comes from the bottom to the top, I think adds great value to this party in terms of understanding our constituencies, understanding the American people, understanding Democratic voters. And I think you're in a class of your own in that regard. So thanks for having me.
Thanks, Ashley. I think truly appreciate you saying that. But I think it's important because people will see you on here. They'll say, oh, this is a pretty black woman. That's how she got to where she's at. She's not. They need to know your story. So give us the 5 minutes. Start at the beginning because I think there's a lot of folks, regular working folks, a lot of black and brown folks, a lot of mixed race folks like me and you, a lot of folks out there that are like, I think it's important for them to hear your story. So why don't you give us a little background on how you ended up working in the most important building in Washington, the U.S. Capitol, working for boss lady herself, Nancy Pelosi, getting to be on CNN all the time. Where did little Ashley start?
So I started as a young person, maybe around the same age as my daughter now, maybe 8 or 9. My dad and I traveled from the suburbs of Houston to the inner city of Houston. And I asked him simply, why do these areas of Houston or these communities, these neighborhoods look different than our neighborhood? And he said, it's because of a lot of decisions made for these people. And if you want to change things, you got to go to Washington. The part that rubbed me the wrong way were this phrase, decisions made for people, which meant those people were not at the table. These decisions were made made for them. And so I just felt like there wasn't something right about that. And I wanted to go to Washington and represent those people, my people. And I had no idea how to do that. My parents weren't donors. They didn't write big checks. They didn't go to big schools. In fact, neither of them graduated from college. So I was sort of on my own in terms of how to figure that out. So what I decided to do was write out 5 members of Congress. I got on an airplane, made a pitch for each one of them, which was probably the beginning of my communications career, wrote out why they should hire me, showed up, knocked on their doors, and I decided to take, I got, knocked on 5 doors, got 3 offers. I decided to take the job with Ken Benson. If you remember Ken Benson, who's the nephew of Lloyd Benson, who was a state senator in Texas, he was running for U.S. Senate as a Democrat on the sort of the Rainbow Coalition ticket, black, brown, white, and we've still not won that Senate seat. So I knew then we weren't going to win the Senate seat as Democrats. But I chose his office because I knew people would leave and I would quickly be able to move up. So I just got in his office and put my head down. I started at the front desk. Within a year, I was the communications director and just grinded it out. I got lucky. I took a job. I was in the Obama administration, took a job with Mr. Cummings, who was the head of, the top Democrat on the Oversight Committee. And we started together and he gave me all the resources I needed. He trusted me with everything. And we did all the big investigations, Benghazi, Fast and Furious, the war against women. It was going into 2012. We did the financial, we went after the banks for their mortgage fraud. So I did all those big investigations. So that was the first
Were
sort of
you
really,
working for the committee for Mr.
yeah, I
Cummings?
was the head of communications for the committee under Mr.
All right,
Cummings.
stop. Tell me, you're running this big ass committee. You're this woman of color in Congress. How old are you at this point in your life?
Oh, I think I was probably maybe 30, 31
Yeah.
at this point.
It's important for everybody listening who's like, oh, I could never go to Congress. I could. She's running the comms for the most important, I would argue, committee in Congress, and she's 31. Please continue,
Yeah,
Ashley.
so that committee does all the big investigations, impeachment of Bill Clinton, right? They did. And so it was going into Barack Obama's second term. So we knocked it out the park. I don't want to get into any details. And, Mr. Cummings becomes a complete rock star, with my help. Thank God. And then after that, I was walking through the hallways of the Capitol, met up with one of Pelosi's top communications directors, and he said, we've been watching you. I had this theory in my mind, as to your point, as a young Black woman, that people didn't appreciate me, that I was going unseen. And so I felt like Kanye West 1.0, when he's like, I'm a genius and nobody's giving me a Grammy. And that's how I felt. I'm like, I'm a genius. Somebody recognized this. And I felt like people weren't paying any attention. I ran into Pelosi's top comms person. He's like, we've been watching you, which threw my Kanye West theory out of the water. Would you want to come work for Nancy? And I said, what? I want to be Nancy Pelosi. I don't just want to work for her. She's bad, like brilliant, strategic, fearless, stylish, doting mother, doting grandmother. Like that's the woman I want to be when I grow up. So I started working for Nancy. We did some great work together. Then the White House called, which also blew my Kanye West theory out of the water. They're like, we've been watching you. I was knocking on the door for 6 years trying to get into the White House. Could not get into the Obama White House. They finally called me when I was working for Pelosi, offered me a job, not just one job. They were like, you've got your choice of 2 jobs. This really gets to the point that, persistence actually works. Keeping your head down and developing a reputation for doing great work and operating with excellence, people are watching and they will pull you up. So I went to the White House, was a special assistant to Barack Obama. After that, Trump wins. We had this theory where folks weren't going out they didn't want us to go out to the Hillary Clinton campaign. I don't know if they wanted me to tell you that, but I decided I was going to go out, and most of my colleagues stayed in the Roosevelt Room. And when I got back, of course, we lost. Nancy's office started calling, Cummings started calling, all these members of Congress started calling, saying, you got to come back. Now is the time. You can't go west and sell $1,000 widgets to the hood. You've got to save the hood. The country's on the line. Pelosi's quoting every founding father, like, now is the time. The times have found us. You got to come back. So when I went back, I met in her conference room. She had this like maybe 12 feet long conference table. And she's like, this table represents what we have to do. We've got to win back the House. We got to win back the White House. I got to become the speaker again. And at the time, it did not look like any of that was even possible. But I told her, I said, listen, I'll come back under one condition. One, you give me the top job as communications director. And by this time, I'm maybe 35. Give me, the top job is communications director. Secondly, I only want to wake up wearing Trump's ass out every day. So she said, do it. Right. And so I built a team, 14 committees, maybe close to 60, 70 staffers. We did 23 investigations into the Trump 1.0. Six cabinet secretaries resigned under scandal. And then eventually I got to run the impeachment war room. And, I was really nervous because what happens in Democratic politics, Chuck, you can attest to this, when the shit gets really big and hot and it looks like this is the center of the action, that's when sort of the white boys come on high and they swoop in and they take all the credit. And I'm like, I will not allow some white boy to come in and take the credit for all this work I've been doing for 2 years, get their book deal, their movie deal on impeachment, all these things. And so I decided to take Pelosi's advice, which is power isn't given, it's taken. So I went to her and her team and said, I want to run the impeachment war room. I started to make my case, and they were like, stop, we're going to let you run it. So I ran the impeachment war room. It positioned again, we won 40 seats. Sorry, we won 40 seats to win back the House. She became the speaker again. I ran the impeachment war room, and it positioned Joe Biden to win the White House. After that, Kamala Harris calls me when she becomes the vice president. I go work for her for a year. And that after that year, I start to transition out of Democratic politics. And now I'm out in the world on my own, advising CEOs that are in crises. I have my own firm. I'm a senior advisor at another firm. But now I'm taking what I learned in politics and helping other people try to navigate these sort of really disruptive times. So that's the top lines on my story.
No, that's awesome. And I need to ask a few follow-ups. I didn't want to interrupt. One was when you won back these seats, when you leave the White House and come back to work for Leader Pelosi, you are in the minority and you're heading into the 2018 midterms?
Absolutely. So I took over her communications when Trump won in 16. I went back to the Hill to work for her, and I told her my only objective is to run the opposition, to build the opposition to Trump, and I want to run that entire operation. And she gave me the latitude and the space to actually do that.
And in 18, help me remember how many seats we picked up in 18.
40. We
40. And
picked
we
that.
won back the majority.
And we won back the majority. And then we went through the process of electing her as speaker for a second time.
That's awesome. So I bring this up for all of you girls and boys listening because it's almost like a time capsule in time. Sure, lots of things in history have changed. We've lived through lots of trauma and lots of other things. We've lived through Elon Musk. We've lived through lots of stuff. Now we have Donald Trump elected a second time. And the scenario that my sister is raising is playing out in front of us right now, which is going to lead to my question. Now, is it the same? No. Is it kind of the same? Yes, because it's still him. He's still in power. He has all three chambers of government. He has the Supreme Court, he has the Senate, and he has the House. He has just got elected president. We're moving into a midterm election. We're in September, moving into the first midterm election, which normally, just like it was when Assey described it, or in any other president in that first term, all those presidents have done bad. I can talk about what happened in 2010 with Barack Obama. I can go back to 1996 with Bill Clinton. Like, this has been a pattern. And you're seeing now in elections, special elections, especially if I can, that have been overperforming for Democrats because Democrats are pissed. And then independents are pissed. Lots of people are disappointed in what they're seeing. Even this morning, I talked on a podcast about how even the Latino numbers that are very much go back and forth in the swing universe because of what they're seeing of the trauma in their own neighborhood. They voted for him because they wanted to deport crooks. They wanted cheaper shit. And they're not getting that. But here's the question. That was the big Chuck Rocha windup.
Can I just
Which
say there
is,
was a difference between 18 and now?
no, I want you to stop
Okay.
because this is the question.
Okay.
As a comms expert, as what you're seeing then and what you're seeing now, what's different?
Okay. Yeah, the big difference in 18 when I was running the operation, we had to, or 16 going into 18, we had to take down Donald Trump's numbers, right? Again, he was an unknown entity when we took over. When he took over in 16.
Yeah, folks didn't think he was going to win.
Yep, exactly. And people were buying into his narrative that he's a billionaire, that he's going to change America, that he had all these wonderful right ideas. So we had to really take down his approval rating. In a way, right now, he's already tanking. People already believe he's a crook. They already believe he's corrupt. You know what I mean? His numbers are already, at 34% approval. I think if I'm correct on that one.
You are.
So his approval ratings already in the tank. So Democrats really are in a different position in that you're not trying to convince the American people that Trump is no good for their pocketbooks, for their liberties, and all these other issues. They already know that. What you need to now do is try to weaponize all of that, to mobilize voters, to get them energized, to write checks, to build up confidence in your leadership. And that is the major difference. The fundamentals are the same. You're right. You've got to have a strong message. You've got to have coordination. You got to build coalitions to maximize, to spread out into communities. But the major difference is that people are already convinced of Trump and we're still not landing punches on him. And that's the part that really baffles me. Why, in an environment where Trump's at 34, we're beneath Trump in terms of favorability? Like that, when people are feeling the pain almost immediately, why is it that we're not landing any punches on this guy? Every day there's another corruption nugget. There's another sort of, huge egregious offense that we're not maximizing and taking advantage of. So that's the major difference. And I will say, what I did appreciate then is that Pelosi was just fearless in terms of her leadership. I mean, every day she woke up like me, just ready to wear him out every day on every issue. He couldn't move without us being there, and nobody could move without us being there. And I'm not really seeing that really, that fearless leadership as well as that coordination outside of the Capitol that's having these ripple effects.
And I'm going to get to that, and we're going to dig deep. That's exactly why I wanted to have Ashley on to talk about some of these strategies of what we could be doing better and things that are opportunities for us that maybe already be happening. But I want to keep where we're at before we get into that detail, because another thing that I see that's very different is that we've lived through 4 years of Biden Harris. And for some reason, some people could say because Joe Biden stayed too long, he was old, he was weak, he was whatever the things are, he stumbled. And this great Republican communication juggernaut that just dumps on him every day. That
Literally for 4 years, right?
absolutely. And I think what that's done, in my opinion, and you're the communication expert, so this is what I kick to you, is it seems like the big difference for me, all the things that you described are right. In addition to, in Chuck's opinion, is that the brand is broken because of what people's lived through the last 4 years of how bad we've communicated, or maybe what we've done to make people's lives better. Him just being a flawed candidate, her having 100 days. Every Democratic operative in DC's got some fucking excuse. But what do you think the brand is so broken, and how did it get broken? Because I see that being a big difference of what you had and what we have now.
Yeah, I mean, I think the brand has been um continually on a decline for years, and we've not
Okay.
admitted that as Democrats.
Okay.
We've not confronted that issue. I mean, because you can look back at, you and I have been talking about this for a while, the New York Times sort of autopsy of the election, and they broke down the numbers. We've been bleeding support among our people, Black and brown people, since 2012. So this is not a, last 4 years Joe Biden problem. This has been a problem for the Democratic Party since 2012, since Barack Obama was the president. And we've been sort of in this silent crisis, and it's only getting worse. And we're not confronting it. I mean, I was just saying, Chuck, just recently, I mean, think about it. Imagine it. Like, Black people are actively voting for a racist. They know he's a racist, and they're choosing to vote for him over the Democratic Party. If that doesn't suggest or indicate the depth of the problem that the party has, I don't know what else does. Just that one factoid there. So I just think this has been a problem for a while. We don't want to be honest about it. And then I think largely we have the problem with the parties. We have a failing sort of aging infrastructure. The state parties are old, ineffective. The tactics we're using are ineffective. We're getting our butt kicked by the Republican on their influencer strategy, the social media strategy. Even got our butts kicked on the ground game this last cycle in a way we've never had it before. So we're no longer sort of taking seriously what this trust gap is that's growing between the core base voters in the Democratic Party and the problems that we have in terms of our infrastructure, in terms of our messaging and our leadership within the party. So this problem's been going on for a while. And I'm just concerned that as a party, we're not going to confront these issues. I'm hearing right now, there's an autopsy that's being written about what they found in the last election, and and there's talks about hiding and sort of redacting portions of the report. So when you're not honest with yourself as a party, the rest of the country, the rest of voters, they can sense it. They're not idiots. We're not giving them enough credit. They can see this stuff a mile away. And so that's why that trust gap is growing between us and our core voters, and it's really diminishing the brand.
So this is, I want you to give me your opinion on this. I hear that when I talk to voters, when I talk to party leaders, when I talk on TV, that there's a range of opinions on what I'm going to say depending on who I'm talking to. Folks say, when I say, well, Donald Trump's approval rating, to your point, is somewhere between 35 and 39 today. But when you ask the approval rating of Democrats, it's at like 29. And that's a lot of Democrats who are mad at Democrats. They think we are not standing up to him or whatever the thing may be.
Mhm.
Now, when you talk to folks, some professionals, some just campaign folks are like, how have we gotten here? Well, there's a certain sector of consultants and folks who say Democrats are still fighting for the right things. Joe Biden, and then they'll give me the things that is true. Joe Biden signed a lot of legislation that will help people in the long term. We're going to
Mhm.
build things. We're going to have bridges. There are these chip factories that will be built in America. There's COVID relief. There's insurance
Infrastructure,
stuff,
yeah.
infrastructure. Yeah, all this stuff that happened. So they say, well, he did good things, but he just didn't communicate enough. That's one. The second group, people say, well, he did good things, and people maybe think he did good things, but none of that stuff helped people immediately.
Mm.
So they never felt anything immediately. And then the third opinion that people have, and I'll stop at that one, and you can tell me which of these three you think best fit, is that they're like, well, Fox News and Republicans have such a echo chamber of communications, whether it's built around Fox News, the broadcast on podcasts, social media that they're so much better at. And they just have this echo chamber to talk about Joe Biden being old and slow, while Republicans are cool and are going to stop telling you what's best for you. Which of those three things, or is it a combination of those three that have put us in the position we're in today?
I say D, all the above.
Okay.
It's all of them. I think it's all of them. I think our communications is trapped in the 90s. I mean, I'll give you a good example. I was just communicating with the DNC and I said, listen, send me all the communication you have about the fact that 300,000 plus Black women have dropped out of the economy and that unemployment in the Black community is a record 7.5%, almost double that of our white counterparts. Send me everything you've said on it. So what I got back was some communications to reporters and a statement and a public statement. And I responded with saying, this is an opportunity to not just drive a message, but to mobilize communities. How are we doing this in a new, fresh way? Other than issuing a statement. I mean, that's a 1990s strategy. Why are we not out here on every podcast, building coalitions, creating an echo chamber where we can push this stuff out? Why aren't we putting money behind it? Digital ads, ads on TV. Like, why aren't we leaning into this to define Republicans? Um, and I've got no answer back on that. So our communication is trapped in the 90s. And I worked in the Biden White House and I can attest to that. I'm sort of like, why are we narrowcasting our communications when we should be broadcasting far and wide? So that's one thing. I think to your second point, the immediacy of results is a real thing. But if people aren't hearing from you about what you did, then it's all dead, and it creates this space for Republicans to fill that void, which Trump did superbly for 4 years. He filled that void for Democrats. He stepped in and said, "Listen, to Black and brown people, he doesn't care about you. What is he doing for you?" And because there's no immediacy, then nothing was done. But the immediate thing that we did though is got us out of COVID, which was major. We revamped brought back the entire economy. But we never leaned into our accomplishments, which is another problem for Democrats as a whole. Barack Obama left the White House with that, making that same point that he never told people what he actually did, right? So effective his legacy. So I think all of these things, and what was the last one was um I think messenger is key. So understanding that
Messenger.
messenger is key. So understanding that Joe Biden at 80 years old couldn't be all over the country, you needed someone who could. And we did not build an apparatus outside of the vice president, outside of the cabinet to actually do that work for us. And that was a mistake.
So you said something that kind of stuck with me. Ashley said that our comm strategy is stuck in the 90s. Well, girls and boys, as a 36-year veteran of Democratic politics at every level, and now a senior statesman, I'll promise you that our campaigns are still stuck in that same 90s mud hole, which is a lot of money raised and a lot of network TV and a lot of the same old consultants who broke this party. I said to a reporter last week, I'm like, would you keep hiring a doctor if he keeps killing all of his patients? How do they keep getting hired? Well, these
Or I
consultants,
sort of describe it as a relationship. If this is a boyfriend you're dating, you're over investing and he's not investing anything back and you leave his ass. And that's sort of what we're seeing right now.
I think that that's right. And so we haven't seen this, Ashley, that in the last 10 years, probably 20, but I'll be nice and say 10, you haven't seen an uprising of Black and Latino owned firms, working class folks who've worked their way through Congress, whose mom and dad were immigrants, who mom and dads didn't go to college. They're the first
Me and
gen, and
you, yeah.
right, me and you, right. So you don't. I have a firm, you have a firm, but where are the oddities? There's less than 1% of all the consulting firms are made up of any people of color that own the firms. There's plenty of folks that are working around a lot of that power structure. But I bring that up not to be like, oh, woe is me or woe is Ashley, or we are going to be fine because we have credentials. What's not is you don't see any new Black women owned firms. You see no new Latino firms or Black men owned firms who could help bring a modern Democratic Party into where folks are actually consuming now. And this is not just around Black radio or the barbershops or the taqueria, like
Or the
bullshit like that.
churches. Yeah.
Right. That's what we're talking about. Is like where folks, because our society has changed. The
Yeah.
Republicans are way better at understanding the vibe of the nation because they're closer to it.
Yeah.
We think that because we are smart and we have lots of smart, well intentioned, good people, but they don't understand the nuance. And that got us by for a while.
Yeah.
But as things has changed and modernization has come to pass, your communication strategy that you're complaining about is the same complaint I have about the campaign side of this, where we just start losing on the margins, and then over time that builds to where we puts us in the place we are today. Are you
Yeah.
with me or not on that?
I'm with you 110%. And I will say the problem for the party is that they're not seeding any of these firms. There's New York Times article that said, 4 firms walked away with $100 million out of this last campaign. None of those firms look, were headed up by anyone who looks like me or you. Now, if you had given me $100 million, if you had given me or you a quarter of that amount of money, we could be right now testing new models from the ground game, your expertise, to communications, my expertise, testing new models now to bring our communities back to the party, to figuring out how do we modernize our communication with our communities. How do we modernize the ground game? How do we meet people where they are? Where are they anymore? Who are they anymore? And because we're not seeding firms, we're not doing that in between work. I am a strategist, and I advise and counsel my clients that what matters most is the in between time, not on election day, not 30 days out from an election or 3 months out from an election. It's the time right now. What are you doing right now to engage our core base right now? And my point is had they seeded firms like yours or ours, we could be actually doing that work right now rather than waiting to an election for. So we're planting these seeds. So a year from now, it's blossoming. We're not scrambling. I've been in so many war rooms. I've been on 4 presidential campaigns. Every time it comes down to 30 days out from an election and we're begging for money to turn out Black voters. Why are we doing that? You know what I mean? And it's very easy because we don't have any communication with our constituencies. That means your messaging's off. To your point, you're not on the ground anymore. So
Right.
you're operating all the way up here. And that's what's creating the disconnect. That's what's creating the distrust. And that's where we are right now. And so this thing is not just about money for our firms. It is about people who care about our communities, seeding, those efforts and allowing us the space and the money to go in and try to bring our communities back to the Democratic Party. I don't know a better time to do it than right now when each of our communities are suffering at an unprecedented rate. This is stuff that we've never seen before. 7.5% unemployment in 9 months? You mean to tell me people are driving all around DC picking up immigrants all over the place. It's separating them from their children, their families, all. So our communities are in a crisis right now. And we could be figuring out how to bring them back to the party, how to define Donald Trump in this moment, and how to contrast that with Democrats.
The anxiety is real, especially with
Yes.
Latino community. I'll speak to a community where I'm at every day. And there was an ongoing anxiety around cost of living and the rising prices of things. To your point, right? Like gas and ground beef is going up, but now you have the laid in anxiety of, do I show up to work because somebody's undocumented or whatever the thing is? Like there's just this undertow. There's a new article out today by the Huddled Masses author Adrian Carrasquillo, who wrote about focus groups that they did with the Bulwark, and it kind of laid out where folks are, that they had all these Latino Trump voters. Ashley, you'd have loved this focus group. And in this focus group, all of those people said that they literally regretted their vote for Donald Trump. But you'll shake your head at this. Not only did they regret it, but when they asked if they had to re-vote again, would they vote for Kamala Harris? None of them said they would have. They said they would have, if it had to do over again, they'd have voted for a third party or stayed
Oh, wow.
home. That's how bad it's broken. These are Latino voters who voted for Donald Trump, who said, we voted because we wanted to deport criminals, not our family. And we voted for him because we wanted things to be cheaper. And with his tariffs, he's making them higher. So I think that there's an opportunity, putting a fine underline under what you said. He's doing bad. People get that he's doing bad, but they're not with us yet. But there's an opportunity for them to get with us if we show up in the right way, if we're culturally competent, if we do the things that we all do. Here's my strategy question for you to give to my super nerd audience who I love. And this is what I struggle with. And I think I heard you on TV. What is it?
I'm gonna walk you through my house. My phone is dying. Sorry, forgive me.
That's all right. I'm going to ask you a strategy question about something I think I heard you say on CNN. Maybe it was on Sunday, on one of the Sunday shows, because y'all, I don't get to do Sunday shows, but Ashley does. I'm a little bitter about that. But
Listen, you should hire me. I'll be your communications
this is true.
advisor.
I need a booker. That's what I need, is somebody who actually would book me. But
Forgive me.
the thing that I struggle with is every day there's another thing that Donald Trump has done that is fucking crazy. Every day, he's done something else that should make him unqualified to be the president. And it could be everything from making $1 billion on crypto by folks literally paying him to be president, to firing the Bureau of Labor Statistics, to doing, there's literally 10 things a day, Ashley. So my question as a comms person is, how do you pick and choose what you talk about in a campaign to say this motherfucker's not qualified and he's a crook?
Yeah, I mean, I said on Meet the Press that Democrats really need to get back to adopting this message frame of corruption,
That's
the
it.
culture
You
of
wrapped it
corruption.
all in corruption.
Absolutely. And so my point is everything to your point that we're seeing happening every day, from their economic stealing and stripping Americans of their health care to give tax cuts to billionaires. What we're seeing with his authoritarianism, his lawlessness, to Elon Musk stealing the over 500 million Americans plus and putting in the cloud. I mean, that really, I mean, to me, the fact that Democrats aren't wearing him out about that is beyond me, because the implications of having our data is not just my own individual finances, but also the sanctity of our elections. How am I going to be able to trust the elections if you steal all my data? So, nevertheless, my point is that what the Democrats need to do is to take the issues that we're seeing happening every day that people really care about. We've got polling data that speaks to that. And you wrap that up in a bow of corruption. From the Epstein files to all the way down to Elon Musk stealing the data, all of that is corruption. And we need to define Donald Trump. And we're not doing that effectively. It is an it is a national security issue. It's the best way to talk about his authoritarianism, which we haven't figured out how to do that effectively. And so you've got to wrap this stuff in a bow, because if it's all happening every day, people feel overwhelmed with it, but more importantly, they cannot make sense of it. You got to give people a prism by which they can understand how his actions every day are affecting his life. Now, the reason why I say culture of corruption is because we use it in Austin and won. We used it in 18 when I was running the operation, and we won then there too. Already 60% of the country across the political spectrum already believe this president is corrupt. So why not lean into it and put a bow on all of this so people can understand how this stuff affects their lives? And we were able to do that in 18. And then what we had in the House, I don't think they have this right now, is we had the messaging committee run a regional strategy. So we were targeting 40 seats, 35, 50 seats. So we would take that corruption message framework and go into those districts and explain what's happening in those districts and how it affects them. Now, we don't have many Democrats in Nebraska, but you got a lot of pissed off Republicans in Nebraska, for example. They're about to file bankruptcy as a state potentially. A lot of these farmers, because they're losing their farms because the workers are gone, except the tariffs are hitting them hard. Why aren't we putting this stuff in a bow and talking to everybody right now? Because everybody is being impacted by this economy except the rich. So that's really my argument, is that, we've got to create a prism by which people can understand how this stuff in his everyday action is affecting them. And the key about corruption is it's not going to end. You know what I mean? It's only going to keep getting worse with every passing day. We see more and more examples of it. So why not leverage it to our benefit, to draw that contrast, to speak to new voters and bring back our core constituencies?
Yeah, I think that you laid that out really good. And I've been waiting for a comm strategist that come on here and talk about this because it's pretty simple, but sometimes we get caught up because we want the perfect message for the perfect thing because we're Democrats and we overthink all of this shit way too much. I would remind everybody that the presidential super PAC spent $70 million just to test ads to make sure they delivered the exact same right ad to the right person around the right message, and we still got our ass kicked almost after wasting
Literally.
$100 million just testing the perfect message. When, if you think about it simplistically, like Ashley just
Simplistic.
laid out, it's just like, he's not good. We don't blame you for voting for him. We all feel anxiety. Like, I think it's a big part of owning some of our own shit too and be like, look, we've kind of lost our messaging way. We want to get back to talking about what built this party: work, honor of work, families, faith, all the things, and say, but that motherfucker, he cares about families, but it's only his family. He don't care about your family. And
Sure.
here's what we're going to propose.
Absolutely.
The last part of this is this is what we're going to propose, because you got to have a solution and you just can't be anti-Trump. That's what I think we're missing.
Yes. I think you're right. But listen, this is one thing I want your viewers to understand from a communications perspective. It's not going to be, and I think this is the mistake we keep making as Democrats, it's not going to be one message. It's the cumulative effect of it all. There's not a silver bullet. We're not David. He's not Goliath. There's not going to be a one slingshot and one rock. It's not going to be that simple. You've got to wear his ass out. You've got to pull out the guns, the Uzis, and get to shooting. I mean, figuratively, obviously. But the point is, it's the cumulative effect of it. And where we get in our own way, to your point, is we overthink it, we get in our head. And when you don't have a relationship with your voters, it's easy to do. It's easy to spend $100 million, waste $100 million. So my argument is that had the party seated your and my firm, we developing and cultivating that relationship right now with our key constituencies and with our base voters. So we know exactly what message has resonance with them. We would have been able to figure out that maybe the trans issue doesn't, resonate with black voters. That black voters don't want the trans, movement to be on the backs of civil rights movement and don't want to be forced into a box to support it. I mean, that's what we saw in the polling. But because we have no relationship outside of an election with our base voters, we had no idea of that. So of course you're going to waste $100 million testing ads. But my point is that we've got to get back into relationship with our voters. We got to get into the communities, the DNC, and I think Ken Martin is doing this. I think this is part of his vision. Get out of Washington, back into the communities, get rid of these 4 or 5 people that have been making all the strategic decisions for the Democratic Party since I've been in it for 25 years, and they've been making all the money, right? I mean, you've got to burn the whole thing down and restructure it so that it puts us in community with our key voters and that we're not sort of throwing money, good money after bad money, throwing message after message, trying to see what actually sticks. But when we're in relationship, that's a powerful thing.
And I think when she calls being in relationship, I call it being connected to the community in some way. And that doesn't mean that you have to live in that community still. but it means you've had some
Yep.
relationship with that community. Like when her daddy drove her into downtown Houston, she's like, "Why the fuck does this place look different than mine? And we're only however many miles apart." And then
Right.
having a say, right? Like those people. I was saying this morning. I happened to be at the DNC. I was meeting over there with some folks, and we were having a little podcast. And I said, I remember having to go to a payday lender on a Thursday. I was a teenage father and getting diaper money for my baby because he needed diapers, but I didn't get paid till Friday. So I borrowed $50 and had to pay him back 75. And I remember how I don't, embarrassing I was, how I felt like lesser than, and I was like, but I had to do it. So I keep those stories in my head when I'm writing an ad because I've lived through that personal anxiety and something I might have been ashamed of or something I had to
Absolutely.
do to make sure my baby had diapers. But I think there's a lot of people in our party, and again, not bad people. They have not one ill will in them, but they've been removed from that struggle or that pain for so long, they've forgotten how to talk about it, and they only know a poll or a focus group that can get them grounded in any way, in any kind of community. And I find that being the backbone of the problem.
Absolutely. Let me punctuate your point even more so. Go back to my other point about sort of how Black women and Black men, in particular, the community is being affected right now in the economy. I asked, well, what are you guys saying about this? I was sent back all these data points. And I said, listen, I don't need the data points. I'm living it. Okay. Personally living it. I lost all of my clients at the beginning of the year, just like that. Okay. They were like, listen, we got to get rid of the Black girl. And not just that, I live in a community where bloated by. You live in DC. You're not, you don't live, I don't think you live in upper Northwest. I feel like you live in the
I
same
live in
community.
Southeast. Let's be
And
real.
so my point, yeah, I mean, Southeast has got, a nice, wonderful, rich history and reputation. So my point we're not removed from it at all. We're being affected by it every day. This is not theory with me. I am one of those women that I'm referring to, and I want to know what you've done. And the reason why I want to know is because we've given 94% of this party. What are we getting back in return for the 94%? See me? We're not getting any jobs. You know what I mean? Because you go over to the building, I'm sure you've seen it directly, that there's not too many folks that look like us that are running anything in that building anymore. So my point is, you're absolutely right. You gotta, we've come at this issue and the party from a different perspective, from a lived experience. And it's not even a past one, it's a current one. All the more reason why folks like us should be at the table to help not just define the message but also the strategy in terms of how we get and reach our own people.
Well, I think that's a good way to button up this piece of that. And I really appreciate Ashley. And Ashley, when we do this, and I wanted you on because you're a comms specialist, you have done the war room, you've seen and been in the most powerful rooms, and you're a woman of color who's just been like breaking down barriers left and right. And I remember us having some Mexican food a few months ago and how I was struck by I was struck by lots of things by you, but mainly around your story and all the shit you've done because I meet a lot of girls. They're not women yet. They're girls who intern for me who are trying to find community. And they talk about how hard it is
Mhm.
because they get pigeonholed if they're black and they got to go talk to the black reporter. If they're Latina, they got to go do the immigration thing, right? Where you broke the barrier, where you were over charge of all of it. You weren't in charge of the black communication or the Latino or the Texas or the Creole communication, all of it.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
go.
No, no, I was just gonna say you're absolutely right, and I didn't allow myself to get pigeonholed. I think that would be my advice, but I would also say I'm available to anybody that wants to, learn from me and my experiences. None of this is easy. Being in these rooms, being the first is not easy. Breaking glass ceilings isn't easy. But people like you and me, what I appreciate, mind me stroking your ego too, as well, or not really stroking your ego, but letting the people know you have a commitment to bringing people to the table that look like you. And I have the same commitment. I recently was honored by the Smithsonian Women History Museum for my legacy because not only did I break glass ceilings, but I brought people to the table. I expanded the table. Now it includes more people who look like me. And so you and I both have that commitment to making sure, little, to your point, girls like me can can really realize their full potential in this business. So my point is always don't get yourself pigeonholed. Befriend people like me and you that have a commitment to making sure that these individuals achieve their highest potential, and also be put yourself in the center of the action. I think a lot of people are afraid to do that. I mean, I that was part of my success in my career. I always wanted the hardest assignment, the one nobody wanted. Give that one to me. I'm about to knock that bitch out of the park. You know what I mean? And so that's what enabled me to build my reputation because I would always put myself in the center of the action where nobody else wanted to be. The benefit of that, you're with the A team. It's going to stretch you. It's going to grow you. It's going to expand your reputation. The people who are in the rest of the business are going to be there in the center of the action, and you're there with them, and they're going to take you wherever they go. So those are some of my pieces of advice. But listen, I want to champion your efforts to make sure you expand the table. And I'm committed to that too. So, any of your interns or anyone else who wants some advice and help about my journey, I'm available to you.
We love you, and I think that what you're doing is awesome, and this will not be the last time, but we always end this thing on a little lighter note because I get real serious real quick around here. And I think that certain things in culture brings us together. A lot of it is food, a lot of it is music, a lot of it is faith and family. So here's the question to you is you're from Houston. And if I have boys on
Yes.
here, I'll ask them what's their workout song or their walkout song if they were playing baseball. So
Uh-huh.
I need to know that song that you listen to that gets you all hyped up before a speech or before a workout or what. I need to know what you listen to.
So it is, I mean, it varies. I
Tell
love
me.
Nicki Minaj. I feel like I feel like I embody that Nicki Minaj energy, bad bitch energy. But I would say, the song that would be my walkout song is Outkast, So Clean. Ain't nobody dope as me. I'm dressed so fresh, so clean.
So fresh and so
So
clean,
that's
clean.
exactly, exactly. So that is a big ego stroke for me, you know what I mean? Thinking and knowing I'm the baddest bitch, and really, reality is, like, when you're in these places and spaces that aren't made for us, where you're the only one, that's that that in addition to scripture I have scriptures on my phone that when I was in the Roosevelt Room, Oval Office, and I felt intense moments or unsure about myself, I'd pull up those scriptures and read them. So it's that outcasts in scripture in Jesus.
And I think that's so important. And I think we'll have a whole nother podcast about how we've quit talking about scripture and talking about things that deal with a lot of us. But thank you, Ashley, for being here. Thank you for following the Rocha Revolution. Y'all need to go to her page and subscribe to her. Follow her on all of her Instagrams and her Twitters and look for her on CNN. They won't let me and her be on the same program at the same time or the whole fucking place would catch on fire from erupting
That's
from our
right.
fire. That's right. Thank you, Ashley, and love all of y'all. We'll see you next week.
All right. Thanks, Chuck. All right. Keep up the great work. Thank you, sir.
Bye.